Finally, things are happening in the EU. We have a new Bitcoin law that has just been passed in an EU country. Lynn Alden says that this is so much better, as if nation-states are buying Bitcoin, because this law really takes Bitcoin to a new level, and now we have more and more states, even in the EU, that are speaking out in favor of Bitcoin. Or rather, not more and more. These are the first steps here. We know that the Czech Republic is evaluating the introduction of a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now we have the second big announcement, as they are introducing massive pro-Bitcoin regulations and legislation. Let's take a look at what this is all about. Because in the best-case scenario, there's a shake-up here, and this whole thing will spill over to other countries. And then there are more and more countries in the EU that are opening up to Bitcoin. We see that not all countries in the EU are against Bitcoin, but there are actually many countries here that are considering it. Maybe do something pro-Bitcoin or even go all in like the Czech Republic is doing. And now here comes a pro-Bitcoin regulation. And we'll take a closer look at that right away, especially why Lynn Alden is so bullish on what's going on right now. Lynn Alden is a market analyst, and when she's bullish, it usually means a lot. But we start here with the pension funds. Here it says at BlockTrainer, the State Pension Fund of Michigan continues to hold the Bitcoin spot ETF from ARK, as the latest 13F filing in Q4 shows. So, there are new 13F filings out now, and it's clear that pension funds are still bullish on Bitcoin. If I understand this correctly, the USD values are indeed higher now, but the shares are still worth the same. So, they've just taken advantage of the price increase here. But it's important that new players are coming into Bitcoin. Pension funds, asset managers, new companies. I mean, that's the only way the Bitcoin price can go up. When we have new buyers here. And that's basically what more and more people are starting to understand. That in the end, even small allocations, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5% can be good for a portfolio. And that's why pension funds are holding on to Bitcoin. That's why they continue to hold. They're just hodling through. That's a really, really good sign that there's no selling off happening here. And there are potentially always new buyers coming in. That's also a positive thing. And then we have a really, really important piece of legislation in an EU country here in the Czech Republic that's being set up pro-Bitcoin. And I've said it before at the beginning, this is important. Ultimately, there is also counterpressure because we see trends in the EU that they want more surveillance here. They want to introduce a digital euro. They want to do a whole bunch of strange things. Abolish cash, somehow set up a centralist EU state. And who knows what else is supposed to come. And accordingly, it's important that there are also freedoms here, like here in the Czech Republic. This was kind of kick-started about 2 or 3 months ago. Things were already getting pretty wild back then. But now we basically got the confirmation that the Czech Republic is definitely going to push hard for Bitcoin and will position itself pro-Bitcoin. That means here, the Czech President Petr Pavel is signing groundbreaking Bitcoin law. And that's basically it, because we really need to create some momentum here, that maybe other states in the EU will join in and understand this too. Hey, it doesn't help if we just shut ourselves off and so on. Christine Lagarde also talked with that other guy from the Czech Central Bank. I can't remember his name right now. I think it's Michel. They met up too. And then here, Michel reports that they might want to buy Bitcoin. They want to check that out now, if that's something they can do and so on. And then Christine Lagarde responded by saying, yeah, it might be true that the Czech Republic is bullish on Bitcoin. But we here at the ECB, we're not bullish on Bitcoin. We don't think it's a good thing, because Bitcoin is not a liquid asset. It's not liquid, and it's for criminals, and we can't have that in the ECB. Although, of course, neither of those is true. And you could already hear that. There's really a spillover effect here. So it's like this whole thing is swapping over from the Czech Republic to the ECB, because Christine Lagarde is now confronted with the situation in the Czech Republic. She's talking here with Michel, the one who's in charge at the central bank. And that's basically it. So it's not just at the central bank level, but also in general legislation, you know. They're just kind of copying each other here. One country is now pro-Bitcoin, one country is now negative Bitcoin. One country is against Bitcoin and so on. And what if, for example, a country jumps in here, says, hey, we're going to implement a pro-Bitcoin regulation. All the others shoot it down, so of course people will pay attention to that. Does that have a positive effect? Does that have a negative effect? Definitely keeping an eye on that first. They'll take a look first. They don't want to be the first mover. This means that to be a first mover, you always have to have some conviction. It seems that the Czech president is all in on Bitcoin now, but other countries are watching that very closely. And you have to keep an eye on that. Okay, does the law work? What do the citizens think about this? Does it bring any value to the country? What's that all about? And what if other countries come to the same conclusion? Hey, in the Czech Republic, that's such a great example. The citizens think it's good. It brings more prosperity. It brings more capital into the country, more entrepreneurship, and so on. Then other countries will definitely follow suit. It's said to be very, very important here. No capital gains tax on Bitcoin held for more than 3 years. So something similar to what they have in Germany. If you hold Bitcoin for 3 years, then it's tax-free. But in my opinion, we need to go much, much further. We really need to make Bitcoin legal tender. you really have to say that, okay, Bitcoin is just like fiat money. So there's no tax or anything like that on it. Because otherwise, you always run into problems when paying at the supermarket or something like that. If you haven't held the Bitcoin for 3 years yet, or not even a whole year or something like that, then you generally have to pay a tax. Because if I exchange Bitcoin for a good or something like that, then is a taxable event basically completed at that moment. That means because I'm doing a swap here from Bitcoin to euros. And at that moment, it basically triggers a taxable event. But here we're looking further. It goes on to say that crypto companies now have a legal right to banking. No more debanking possible, without explanation. A big success for the introduction of Bitcoin in Europe. And that's basically it. And that's why a lot of people say here, this isn't just a thing for the Czech Republic, but it's a European issue. It's important that we have pioneers like that, because in the end, this is also a really strong statement. Because you see it time and again when, for example, some people are doing something with Bitcoin. That's also Operation Chalkpoint 2.0, which is really taking off in the US right now, where all the crimes are being uncovered, where Bitcoin people, crypto people are systematically getting their bank accounts shut down, just without any explanations. And you can see that in Germany too. I mean, try starting a company in Germany or in any EU country, where the name somehow includes Bitcoin. I have no idea, Bitcoin company or Bitcoin Lightning company or whatever. Just start any kind of company and use it as part of the business. For example, Bitcoin Bakery or Bitcoin Psychology or Bitcoin Author or whatever. You can be really flexible. But as soon as you use the word Bitcoin or sometimes even crypto and then want to open any banks, then you have big problems here because banks can't really categorize that. For banks, Bitcoin is kind of uncharted territory here. That means some banks are scared, some banks are just ignorant, and for some banks, it's just how things have always been done. You have to be careful with new things. There are very, very few banks that are actually open to this kind of thing. For example, the VR bank in the middle, the first bank here that rolled out a Bitcoin offering. In Germany, they are definitely very, very open here, set up. Also, for example, my tenants in Germany from the Bitcoin Hotel. They also have a bank that understands how the Bitcoin Hotel works because the physical Bitcoin Hotel is not the same as the YouTube channel. That's separate from the actual Bitcoin Hotel. But they just get how the physical Bitcoin Hotel operates. What kind of business field this is. You don't have to explain it 10 times. First saying we're doing something with Bitcoin and then having to explain it to the banks. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with crime. At that point, I'm not the one in the hot seat anymore, the banks. Get it? Like, hey, this is a totally legit business field. They're doing something with Bitcoin here and we support that, completely without problems. And that's really, really important. There aren't that many places to turn to in Germany yet. As I said, you can reach out to the VR bank in the middle. If you're doing some kind of Bitcoin business or something and need a bank here, then there might be a handful or so, but definitely not many. And that's basically what's supposed to happen here in the Czech Republic. That this is changing, that everyone has the right here to do Bitcoin, crypto services, and that everyone here also has the right to have a bank. And that's really, really important. And that could really happen here to become a wildfire. That would be very important. That it's also accepted in other EU countries and taken in the same way. And that's why Lynn Alden says, hey, this is what's happening here. Is way cooler than government Bitcoin purchases. So government Bitcoin purchases are fine. They pump the Bitcoin price. But what's even crazier in the long run is when you have laws like that here, that basically lays the foundation. And if you don't have a solid foundation and buy Bitcoin here, then it's pretty pointless. You need the foundation, especially if you're also buying Bitcoin on top of that. The better it is, of course. But that's basically the cornerstone for long-term, healthy Bitcoin adoption here in the Czech Republic. And that could also happen in other countries. And then things don't look too bad here with the EU. But the question is whether that's intentional. And the question is whether the Czech Republic is not getting pressure here. They're also getting pressure from other countries, just like what happened with El Salvador. El Salvador has faced massive pressure from the International Monetary Fund. Tell your story now. The swap is no longer accepting state payments, but is now changing that. And now Bitcoin is not an official currency more in El Salvador. Of course, El Salvador has really pushed ahead here. They were basically the first movers here, saying for the first time as a country, having Bitcoin as an official currency. And I can guarantee you this, I still pay for almost everything with Bitcoin because a lot of people have asked, hey, what's it like now that Bitcoin is no longer an official currency? In El Salvador, yeah, Bitcoin is no longer an official currency, but I still pay for almost everything in Bitcoin. Just think about that, it's so crazy. I made my deposit here yesterday. I'm about to rent a new house here, paid the deposit in Bitcoin. And that's the absolute ultimate use case for Bitcoin. Because normally it's like this when you put down a security deposit. When you rent something, you usually put down a security deposit like a few thousand euros so that the landlord knows, okay, I'm not going to trash the place or anything like that. And usually you just always paid that in fiat money like euros or dollars. and then you would get the deposit back after 1, 2, or 3 years. Then you had less purchasing power. The landlord has less and less security over time. And when you do all of this in Bitcoin, it flips everything around 180 degrees. All of a sudden, when you withdraw the deposit, so after 2 or 3 years or so, it's very likely you'll have more purchasing power. And on top of that, the security for the landlord increases every week, every month, and so on. Of course, it's volatile, but in the long run, the security tends to increase and doesn't decrease. And that's why it's an advantage for both the tenant and the landlord. And I think that's pretty cool. An ultra crazy example of how Bitcoin can be used here. And what's also crazy is that the standard payment method for the landlord I have here. He's not even here, he's somewhere in America or something. I wrote to him via WhatsApp. The standard payment method is, of course, Bitcoin. The first thing I would ask is, can you pay with Bitcoin? Yes or no? Because he's in America, I'm here in El Salvador. How are we supposed to transfer money back and forth? And of course, everyone here uses Bitcoin, including all the real estate deals and stuff that are happening here. They are all preferred, converted into Bitcoin. And sure, Bitcoin isn't an official currency anymore, but there's still a whole lot of Bitcoin payments happening here. But I have to honestly say, I'm here in the Bitcoin hotspot in El Zonte, and in other areas, if you go more into the mountains and so on, there's basically nothing going on with Bitcoin. But that was just a little detour, because we still have to point out that in Europe, they actually don't have very good Bitcoin regulations. Now things are changing, and it actually fits with the Czech Republic that they might buy Bitcoin for the central bank and also the regulations here. Offensive and very, very well designed. Because the Czech Republic is really, as some people say, the Bitcoin capital of Europe. Because the Czech Republic has really brought a lot of innovations to the forefront. For example, a lot of people don't know that. The first Bitcoin hardware wallet was a TREZOR hardware wallet, which I always recommend. That's really the oldest, I'll say it like that, the most OG Bitcoin hardware wallet that's out there on the market. And that's why I recommend it, because it's just top-notch. Very, very secure, very, very simple, very, very easy.
And TREZOR, or rather, Satoshi Labs is headquartered in the Czech Republic.
And that's why it's no coincidence that now the Czech Republic might also be the most advanced Bitcoin country. We have a very, very strong Bitcoin community here in the Czech Republic and so on. Also, by the way, if you still want to get a Bitcoin hardware wallet, if you want, I'll put a link down below for a TREZOR hardware wallet. You can also get it with the code Bitcoin. 10% off the purchase of a TREZOR hardware wallet. So that's an absolute recommendation. And there are also a ton of other great developments happening in the Czech Republic. Here we have the biggest Bitcoin conference in Europe, and a whole lot more. So now we have a glimmer of hope here in Europe, that not everything has to go downhill, but there are really regions here that are leading by good example. And super important now here, folks, just one day until the Bitcoin Advantage. Live call where I'm going to introduce the Bitcoin Advantage for the first time. I will. Here we will have weekly live calls. Here we're going to have an active community. There will be special content here that you can't find on YouTube, so make sure to sign up for the waitlist. I'll put a link down below for you. Otherwise, feel free to let me know what you think. That now the Czech Republic is putting more emphasis on Bitcoin. See you, folks. See you then. Peace out.